Time for Cleared to Play, where we take you inside the tent, get you updated on the latest injuries in the Bay. Proud to partner with UCSF Health on this segment, bring in Associate Professor of Orthopedic Surgery, Dr. Nirav Pandya. Hey, Doc, what's going on?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Have you ever slammed your finger in a car door before?
I have done that, and it was painful. I could not operate for 2 weeks. It was that bad. It was bad.
Yeah, so Andrew Wiggins, what are we looking at here?
You know, I think that the key thing, a lot of it is number one, pain control. You know, that area in the finger, particularly around the nail, it's a closed space. If you get a lot of swelling, it can be extremely painful. And then number two, I think it's the degree of swelling. Is that preventing him from gripping the ball? I think it's his index finger on his right hand. So how that's impacting his shot, his ability to dribble, I think that's really the key. And I think there were some videos of him with his finger taped. I mean, how effective can he be shooting from mid-range and back with the finger taped? So hopefully the pain's getting better. Now it's just a matter of can he function with whatever degree of swelling or discomfort there is there.
Yeah, and that's always, man, so much swelling and discomfort. I've done that a number of times. It never gets easier when that happens. You got Chris Paul dealing with lower leg nerve situation. Is this a recurring thing potentially, or is it something that can be treated and have it go away?
It's usually something that can get treated and go away. And typically there's a nerve on the outside of your leg called your peroneal nerve. The most common nerve that when you get a blow or you kind of twist your leg that will usually get impacted. And it can kind of cause one of two things. One is it can kind of cause pain right in that area, so kind of mimic a meniscus tear, even though it's really the nerve that's giving irritation. Or it can kind of cause numbness and tingling, which simply just takes some time to go away. So for the most part, assuming that he doesn't get another impact or blow to that area, if that's what actually caused it, you know, within the next couple of weeks, usually this is one of those one-time things that goes away. It's kind of like if you hit your funny bone and that ulnar nerve gets irritated, it just lasts for a while and hurts. And it's just a little bit harder for a basketball player because you are running and impacting that leg a little bit more. So it sounds like most of these usually take about 7 to 10 days to get better, and he seems to be practicing doing a little bit based on some of the videos. So hopefully this is just a short-term thing, doesn't get hit in that area again, and he'll be fine.
Doc, what have you been able to make of the GP2 situation where there was a report about a torn calf? The Warriors have been a little bit more tight-lipped about the seriousness of it, though they've admitted he's going to miss some time. What do you make of it?
Well, I think the first thing, when that first report came out, people were like, oh, it's not bad, it's strained. Well, you know, I think the first thing is a strain is a tear. You know, I think it was just different semantics they were using. But the fact that, number one, they said he's going to be reevaluated in the week. So that's a positive sign because usually if you have a very severe injury, you're not really going to get more information, you know, that first week out. So that's, at least to me, indicates it probably it's a little bit more on the moderate side, maybe a grade 2 potentially. Also the fact there were these videos of him throwing out T-shirts at the game and he didn't have a boot on. He was kind of walking around, you know, relatively normally. You know, there was a little bit of a limp. So that once again is a sign that there probably isn't a complete tear in that calf muscle. You just would expect that he would be on crutches. He would be on a boot. So typically, if this is a grade 2 tear, obviously none of us have seen the MRI, then you're kind of following that 4 to 6 week period. And I think the thing that's hard for this kind of injury is that usually in a week or two, you're walking pretty normally, but for an explosive player like GP2 who has to use that calf to go up, that may be what actually causes him to come back a little bit later than some other players because he can't be impactful if he can't play defense effectively and he can't be vertical. But in general, you would expect that based on what we're seeing and putting together some of the reports, hopefully this is like a 4 to 5 week long time away and he'll be back and be effective, which would be great.
Yeah, we need him back there sooner rather than later with this season feeling a little bit more on the brink than it should after 20 games. Niners, Eagles had a number of guys come out nicked up. Ross Dwelly suffered a high ankle sprain, and we saw Trevor Lawrence last night with a similar high ankle situation. What are the prognoses of this high ankle for football players?
Yeah, they usually can be, you know, a 4 to 6 week long recovery period, and if not a little bit longer based on the severity. I think the hard thing is just that inability to really know how it's going to go until you're out in the field and really stressing it, that cutting that agility and that hit again. I mean, we've seen various, you know, severities of it. We saw Jimmy Garoppolo when he was, you know, have it last longer and try to play through it and impacted his performance. And you have some people who are suddenly back in 2 to 3 weeks. So hopefully the fact that they are saying it's going to be several weeks, but they're not saying season ending is a good sign. But particularly for, you know, offensive players who kind of have to rely on that agility and that speed, it can be problematic. So hopefully this is something that he's back in time for the playoffs. It's totally reasonable for a 4 to 6 week recovery for a high ankle sprain. But it's hard. This is this point in the season. The ground's getting harder. Cleats get stuck. They get impact. you're going to see an uptick in high ankle sprains in general this latter half of the season.
That's interesting. And with that, and while we're talking about the feet area, Eric Armstead had a foot injury that seemed to get aggravated in the game in Philadelphia. Add a knee in there as well. For a guy his size, what does that mean?
Yeah, it does make you a little bit worried about all these secondary kind of compensation injuries that are occurring. And this may be one of those things where they're like, look, even though each individual injury may not be that bad, it's a quote-unquote foot sprain and maybe a knee sprain, this might be the time at which you're like, look, let's take a week off, maybe 2 weeks off, just let everything heal up so you're not kind of chasing injuries throughout the season, particularly at his size and how important he is. When you start picking up these little injuries, you don't want them the hamstring, then the high ankle, and then everything else kind of piggybacks off of that. So individually, it doesn't sound too serious, the fact that he was able to play, but you always get worried at that size when you hear a foot and knee. Those are just two really important areas for someone at that position.
Doc, we love having you as always. We'll do it again next week.
Absolutely. Take care, guys. All
right, there it is. Doc Pandya, and the proceeding was sponsored by UCSF Health.